History being made this election night, unprecedented numbers of mail-in ballots and a heated presidential race. Good evening to you. I'm Heather Lewis.
Good to have you along for the broadcast here live at 10. I'm David Oliver. We're going to begin with some kind of breaking news here in the state of Missouri. Just a short time ago, the Associated Press called our governor's race for incumbent Governor Mike Parson. Let me show you real quickly, if we could, the full screen information with the current numbers. We can tell you right now, 69% of precincts reporting Governor Parson has 58% of the vote at this point over Nicole Galloway at 40% of the vote.
We have live team coverage. We want to get out to his election watch party tonight with our Jesse Inman and David Chazanov.
Yeah, guys, as you can see here, they got the music blaring here. As you just said, the Associated Press has called this race. Governor Mike Parson, the incumbent, will stay as Missouri's governor. Just a short time ago, they started passing out signs here at the rally here. And our David Chazanov has been here for this entire night. David, finally, things getting lively in here after a long time of kind of waiting.
Yeah, you could tell the moment the news hit the room, the atmosphere just completely changed. Members of Parson's campaign just started handing out signs, and it looks like he just found about getting ready to speak. And the atmosphere is absolutely crazy. I can barely hear.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they do have the music going, and of course, we got some people entering onto the stage right now, members of the Parson family, of the Parson campaign. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and leave it to you, Governor Mike Parson.
So you're seeing live pictures there from the White River Conference Center, the governor kissing the First Lady there as he's learned tonight that his re-election has been called by the Associated Press. A lot of supporters, Heather, gathered there at the White River Conference Center. Republicans gathering to watch the party and the results come in tonight, but the big news there for the governor, obviously, at this point.
That's right, and you'll remember he was elected to lieutenant governor back in 2016 after winning 100 of Missouri's 114 counties, receiving the most votes of any lieutenant governor in Missouri, and now being elected as governor for himself. Let's listen in.
Thank you, the people of Missouri, for what you've done for me and the First Lady. You mean so much to me when I go to work every day. There's so many people I want to thank and so many things I want to say tonight, but it's late. I know we're all celebrating a big victory tonight, but let me first just say this. This would have never happened if somebody hadn't been from my side for 35 years. The ups and downs that we've had in our lives, the things I put the First Lady through as sheriff, as a family guy, as a farmer, as a business guy. But I'm going to tell you what. There is no First Lady, and there's been a lot of them, but I'm biased, totally. But I'm going to tell you, she is one class act that represents you every day. And the other people I have to thank is my family. My kids are behind me here tonight. Part of them are here, part of the grandkids are not. But I'm going to tell you what, my family has endured a lot for me to be able to do the things I do. Being governor of the state of Missouri is not easy. When you got a family, when you got your sons and your daughters, and son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws and grandkids, I miss them. I truly do every day. But I tell you what, they have stuck with me thick and thin. And several of them are not here tonight. I want to give them a shout out real quick. I got two of my granddaughters. They're at College of the Ozarks. They're listening live tonight. So I'm so proud of them. And I have a grandson that is actually going to a law enforcement academy right now. So I want to give a shout out to him. And needless to say, Izzy and Ben's here with me tonight. Two of the older grandchildren now that's with me tonight. Stephanie and her husband, Jonathan, and Kelly. And his wife had to take little Sophie home, which has been such a blessing in our family. Kelly and Tara adopted her a little over a year ago, and I'm telling you, that's been the biggest blessing we've had in our family, to be able to adopt her. So she's home sleeping. She's smarter than the rest of us here tonight, I can tell you that for sure, but I thank them. I tell you the other thing, Steel Shippey, his team, Team 57, what he's been through trying to keep me on course in the campaign and trying to be on the official side of being governor has been a balancing act. But I'm telling you what, they put one of the best campaigns together, and you see what happened, what their work did, how we won this election tonight.
So you've been listening to live remarks there by Missouri's 57th Governor Mike Parson, reelected tonight to a full term as Missouri governor here in our state. The Associated Press calling that race. The governor giving much credit to his family tonight, also calling the First Lady a real trooper, giving her much of the credit for the success of his reelection campaign here in Missouri tonight.
And we will be checking back in with our crews at the White River Conference Center there in Springfield, where the governor is, coming up a little bit later on in our show.
Headline, though, right there at 10 o'clock, though, here off the top of our broadcast, Governor Mike Parson reelected to a second term here in Missouri. I want to show you how things are looking nationally right now. You've been watching a lot of coverage, I'm sure, across a lot of different platforms and various news sources. We are using the Associated Press to show you our projections in terms of the states right now. You see Vice President Biden right now with 209 electoral votes, President Trump with 112, but you see right now a lot of those different states on that map that are shaded, that light red, those are leaning toward the president. The ones that are shaded light blue are leaning toward the vice president. Of course, Heather, Florida, a big talker tonight. It went kind of back and forth earlier, but it's been pretty much Donald Trump the rest of the evening.
Yes, that's correct. And of course, that a big state up for grabs with 29 electoral votes at stake. We did learn not too long ago that the AP has also called Missouri as a state who voted for Donald Trump. Arkansas also voting for Donald Trump tonight. Here's a look at that breakdown as well.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of big surprises in terms of the normal states you'd expect to see go red and blue, but it's those upper Midwest states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania over on the East Coast too, Ohio. Those are the big ones right now that a lot of people are watching, and right now you see a lot of those big ones with that light shaded red, meaning they are leaning toward the president at this point. Still a long way to go on this national race.
We mentioned Governor Parson winning the governor's seat in Missouri. We also want to get out to our Francis Lynn, who is live at Mother's Brewing here in Springfield, where local candidates from the Democratic Party are watching those results come in. Francis.
Yes, good evening, David and Heather. So I'm still out here at Mother's Brewing. I'm at the Democratic Campaign's watch party. Everyone here is supporting local Missouri House of Representatives candidates, Crystal Quaid for District 132, Betsy Fogel for 135 and more. And of course, presidential candidate Joe Biden. But first, I'm here with Greene County Democrats Executive Director Sam Smith. So before we talk about the candidates, let's talk about this watch party. So can you tell me a little bit about the safety measures? I understand usually it's a bigger party.
Absolutely, yeah. So in response to rising COVID cases here in Greene County, we've decided to hold the scaled back event that practices social distancing and mask wearing. We just think that it's more responsible to do that. Rather than having it being open to the public, it's exclusively candidates, their volunteers, and friends and family.
Thank you. And so let's talk about Governor Parson's win. So what do you think about that?
We are disappointed to see that Parson has won, but we are excited to see what he's able to do in the next 4 years. Obviously, this is going to be a time for compromise. With Democratic wins that we're already starting to see coming across the state on the legislative level, we're really excited to see increased cooperation between Democrats and Republicans as we continue to have more seats. We're going to be able to have a bigger say, and that gives us more opportunity for compromise.
And yeah, so you were talking about compromise and hoping that he would maybe do certain things in the future. What do you hope that he accomplishes that you think would be good for both Democrats and Republicans?
Well, more than anything, we need to get this COVID crisis under control. Just looking at the event that we're having here now, we would all like to be meeting in a larger group. We understand that the reason why that's happening is because of Parson's failure of leadership, and we'd really want to work together to find a solution to that problem.
Thank you. So now let's talk about Amendment 3. So I understand the Democrats are voting no. Can you explain why that is?
Well, I want to start by clarifying that Amendment 3 is not a Democrat or Republican issue. The ballots have already been cast, but it's important to keep the record straight that this is about gerrymandered or not gerrymandered districts. The Democrats don't want gerrymandered districts, we just want a fair shot.
Thank you so much. I think we're out of time for now, but we will talk about Joe Biden just a little bit later. We'll come back to you again. Thank you. All right, for now, back to you, Francis Lynn, Ozarks First.
All right, Francis, thanks so much. I'm not sure where we're going to go at this point, but we are seeing right now that Nicole Galloway, who is watching the results come in, of course, the Democratic gubernatorial candidate, she's in Columbia, and she's taking the stand right now addressing her supporters, Heather.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take that feed live right now from her Facebook Live.
And I love you all. To my mom and dad, thank you. Growing up in Fenton, you taught me the value of a dollar, the value of hard work, the value of family, the value of empathy. Your lessons over the years shaped my outlook on service and helped me understand right from wrong. Thank you to my sister Megan, my best friend, my brother Matthew for always being there for me, my in-laws, my entire supportive family. I am blessed and lucky to have you. To Chris Sloan and my campaign staff, you are incredible. I am humbled by the countless hours you put in, often operating on just a few hours sleep, and motivated by the simple belief that Missourians deserve a new way in Jefferson City. This campaign would not have been possible without each and every one of you. To my brothers and sisters in labor, who are the beating heart of this campaign, I will never forget the support that you have given me, and I will never stop fighting for you. Thank you to the organizers and volunteers, people of all ages, from every corner of Missouri, who reached out to voters, texted and phoned me. You fought for the change we desperately need. To all the young women across Missouri who I met on the campaign trail, I want you to know there's nothing you can't do. Tonight, I may have come up short, but over the past 15 months, I have met so many young women who I know will be future governors of Missouri. Finally, I want to thank the people of Missouri. Listening to your stories, your hopes, your dreams motivated me to get into this race. It was a privilege meeting so many families over the course of this campaign. Contrary to what people may see in our politics right now, campaigns are about hope and optimism, not fear. My goal was to run a campaign that would make you proud, to run a campaign that was accessible and responsive, a campaign that you could see yourself.
So you're listening there on Facebook Live to some comments made by gubernatorial candidate for governor, the Democratic candidate, Nicole Galloway. She's thanking her supporters, saying she may have come up short tonight, but also talking about the fact that she says over the last 15 months of her campaign, she met many young women on her campaign, Heather, that she says could be future governors of Missouri.
That's right, thanking her supporters as well. Of course, Auditor Galloway is the only Democrat to hold a state office in Missouri right now. We'll continue to look at results throughout our show. We want to get back to some of the amendments that voters saw on the ballot today. Missourians have their say on two amendments, that is.
Yeah, the first one deals with term limits here in Missouri. Amendment 1 was on your ballot. It would actually extend the two-term restriction to the offices of Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, Auditor, and Attorney General. So right now, the governor and the state treasurer are the only ones limited to that two-term limit. Amendment 1 in Missouri right now is failing. With 42% of precincts reporting, 52% of voters are saying no to Amendment 1, 48% yes. This is still pretty close, and we still have more than half of the votes to be counted in Missouri, so perhaps this could change, could not. We'll be following it to see what happens next.
Now, Amendment 3 has drawn some controversy because it nullifies an amendment voters approved 2 years ago. Clean Missouri set up a nonpartisan state demographer to draw district lines instead of a commission appointed by the governor. Amendment 3 asks that question again and also makes small changes to campaign contributions and lobbyist gifts. And with 46% of the precincts reporting, It appears that they are saying yes. Voters are saying yes tonight, and that yes vote would undo what voters wanted in 2018 and use a bipartisan commission appointed by the governor for legislative redistricting.
And that does away, if that continues, if the yes votes continues, that would do away with what the voters put in place, which was that independent demographer to draw those lines. So that's an interesting turn of events there. But again, half the vote still to be counted on
just
Amendment 3.
46% of precincts.
Yeah, long way to go on that one, clearly. Certainly county clerks across Missouri have been right on the front lines of this historic election today, especially in terms of the lines you're seeing in various polling locations around the Show Me State.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Our Bailey Stroll is live tonight for us. She is at the Greene County Clerk's headquarters, where the clerk has been expecting about an 80% voter turnout today. And compared to some of the lines that we saw, it looks like we may have hit that. Bailey, what can you tell us?
Well, we're still waiting for voter turnout here. We actually won't get voter turnout results in Greene County until after all the results are in, which could be anytime around 10:30 tonight. But if we look at it on a state level, the Associated Press predicted voter turnout to be about 75% in Missouri. And if we do hit that, we would be at the highest turnout rate since we had a 78% voter turnout all the way back in 1992. But let's talk about what's happening inside the election center right now. In total, they've moved from tallying absentee, then mail-in ballots, and now ballots that have been cast in person. Right now, there are 24 of 79 Greene County precincts reporting, and in total, 30,000 people in Greene County cast a mail-in or an absentee ballot. As of now, they have tallied about 56 ballots. Those results coming in right now from the clerk's office. Scholler says that he expects to have all mail-in and absentee, and now ballots cast today in person by about 10:30 tonight, despite exceptionally long lines at some polling locations like Willard and Republic due to many people taking advantage of curbside voting, something that may have been unexpected here in Greene County. Election judges were filing into the parking lot here in the election center just a little bit ago to drop off ballots, and Greene County Clerk Shane Scholler explains what will be going on inside the election center over the next few hours.
At the end of the night, they have shut down the voting equipment. They have hand tallied the write-in candidates who filed as a write-in candidate. They then, once that's all done, they secure all that within our blue bins that are sealed, and then they bring those back, and then they are received by bipartisan teams, checked in, and then those results with the tapes are delivered to another team who's uploading those results for the voters to be able to see the uncertified results tonight.
Now, as far as how Election Day went at the polls, Scholler says there were only a few minor issues, mostly in the morning with having to transfer some of those scanners, and they might have been knocked out of place or a cord got bumped here and there, but that's pretty minor. Also, some issues with electioneering at certain locations, but no major issues that he could expect on Election Day. And we'll see how that goes as far as inside the election center over the next few hours. Reporting in Springfield, Bailey Stroll, Ozarks First.
And this just into our newsroom, Madison Heaver keeping track of breaking news alerts tonight, staying on top of the breaking election news across the country.
And Madison's been watching some of the key Senate races across our nation, which could flip or not flip the U.S. Senate. Madison, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, David, I'm keeping up with some of those Senate races across the country, including the race for Senate in Arkansas. Republican incumbent Tom Cotton is the projected winner against Democratic challenger Ricky Dale Harrington Jr. That is with 66%. We're also taking a look at Maine's race for Senate between Republican incumbent Susan Collins, Sarah Gideon, Max Lynn, and Lisa Savage. Right now, Collins is leading in that race, but that is with only 31% reporting. We're also watching the race for Senate in Iowa. Teresa Greenfield is currently in the lead. Now that's with 60% of the expected vote. Now, if Greenfield wins, that will be a flip in that Senate seat. The country is also looking at Georgia, which has two Senate races right now, a special election and the other with Republican incumbent David Perdue and John Ossoff. Now, Perdue is leading so far in that race, but it has not been called yet. One Republican Senate seat has already flipped tonight. That was in Colorado with former Democratic presidential candidate John Hickenlooper You'll also want to keep an eye on these races as they could potentially flip the Senate.
Yeah, so again, a couple of flips for sure there. It looks like for Colorado for sure, possibly Iowa too. We want to share some other new numbers with you that have come into our newsroom. We know that the race was already called earlier for Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler here in Missouri's U.S. House District number 4. 70% of precincts are reporting in this race right now. Vicky Hartzler, 69% over her Democratic challenger, Lindsey Simmons. This is going to make a 6th term back in Congress for Vicky Hartzler.
Also seeking his 6th term is Congressman Billy Long, and he has secured that seat tonight with 69% of the votes. This is with 75% of precincts reporting. The Democratic candidate dropped out of this race, Kevin Craig, the Libertarian, with only 4%.
Want to look at one more race before we go to break right now. U.S. House District 8 here in Missouri. Jason Smith, the incumbent, this has been called for him. 77% of the vote in his favor tonight to Kathy Ellis there, the Democratic challenger at 21%. 79% of precincts reporting in that race right there. You recall Jason Smith won that special election to go to Congress back in 2013 when Joanne Emerson, the longtime seat holder in that district there, took a job in the private sector. So again, Jason Smith headed back to D.C. as well. And we'll be back with more election results right after this.
You're watching KOLR10 News, Ozarks First, with David Oliver, Heather Lewis, weather with meteorologist Jamie Warner, and sports with Dan Lucy. This is KOLR10 News at 10.
I hear you. Red wave or red mirage as the numbers are trickling in. Okay.
Welcome back. You're watching your local election headquarters. More new numbers just into our newsroom in Greene County's commission races.
We want to start with District 1, and here's a look at it with 98% of precincts reporting. Rusty McLaughlin coming in with 67% of the votes, the Republican candidate here against the 33% from West Zonker. Again, this is the seat that opened up after Harold Bench, the longtime public service, has retired.
And of course, we're also following the District 2 Greene County Commission race here. We've got John C. Russell, the Republican incumbent, who is trying to retain his seat there on the Greene County Commission. We've got 87% of the precincts reporting right now. John Russell has the lead at 56% over his Democratic challenger, Sarah Lampe. Now, you know that name, Sarah Lampe, longtime state lawmaker for our region, a public educator as well, a long career in public service herself. But right now, with 87% reporting the incumbent on the Greene County Commission there for District 2, John Russell, has that lead. And again, KOLR 10 is your local election headquarters. We did not forget to bring in our political analyst. You see him every time we do elections, Dr. Brian Calfano. He's joining us tonight via, I guess, Zoom or Skype or something like that from Cincinnati, Ohio. And Dr. Calfano, President Trump said we were going to see a red wave tonight. And I'm curious, are we seeing a red wave, or is it perhaps a red mirage?
Yeah, good to see you both, even though it's virtual. It feels like it's either the Super Bowl tonight or the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. And I say that because this may go on for much longer than any of us really anticipated, David and Heather. The reason for that is because it could be what some analysts predicted would be a red mirage, in the sense that because many Republicans voted in person today, and because in a lot of these critical swing states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, you end up having rural counties report first, and these urban areas like Milwaukee and Detroit and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia take longer to have those tallies come in. It will look tonight and tomorrow morning and even tomorrow afternoon as if the president essentially is coasting to victory with maybe 10 to 15% of precincts yet to report. What we'll be telling will be what the Associated Press and other decision desks decide to do. Notice also that there's not been an official call of Florida, even though the president is up by a couple of points there, and you're just over 1% of the precincts yet to report, if I recall from my last check on that. And I think the reason is that there will be provisional ballots, mail-in ballots that have yet to be counted. And the decision desk personnel realize that they don't want to just go ahead and make a call that they have to end up taking back, because they're very sensitive in this election about any kind of claim of malfeasance or fraud or some kind of rigging of the election. What we'll be telling or interesting will be to see how long both President Trump and Vice President Biden can sort of hold off before making official comments about where they see this whole thing going. President Trump, of course, would like to just talk about winning the race and continuing on as president. And of course, Vice President Biden wants to be talking about a transition. If they start wading in with all of this, or their followers are going to be quite anxious to chomp at the bit to get a result. But we just have to let it have some time to pan out in terms of what happens with these votes in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and these other states where they do count ballots past Election Day.
So again, we got to wait for some of these ballots to be counted, and this thing may be far from over, as you said. Any surprises from what you've been watching tonight?
Well, I think there are surprises in the tea leaves in terms of the so-called blue wall. These were the states that President Trump narrowly won in 2016 by just tens of thousands of votes. And I think he's performing better than expected in all three of those states. Wisconsin is now at about 60% of the precincts in, and the president's doing extremely well. We don't know about Milwaukee and Madison, which are Democratic strongholds yet. Same thing with Michigan. I think we're waiting for the Wayne County Metropolitan Detroit vote to come in. And then same thing with Pennsylvania. You've got the Allegheny and Philadelphia County votes that have yet to come in. And don't forget, too, as I said, you can still mail in the ballot. The ballot should have been mailed by now, but Pennsylvania will count a ballot up to 3 days after Election Day if it arrives at the Board of Elections office. North Carolina will wait up to 9 days, and both have been backed by court orders to allow those to happen. So it's not like Missouri, where the ballot had to be in by today to be counted. These states, they're still rolling, essentially, with getting these ballots in and getting them processed. And that's why there was the concern about this so-called red mirage, that a week from now or so, these numbers may be very different, which means you could have President Trump essentially declaring victory before these states go back and finish their tally, and that changes the Electoral College map and math pretty substantially. And that's where I think you're going to get into some concerns about litigation over this outcome. Hopefully it does not come to that, but this race is as close as I think we were thinking it was going to be, and it may end up in the courts.
All right, keep crunching those numbers, keep watching them. Dr. Calfano, we'll bring you back as we can. We appreciate your expertise live tonight from Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll check back later.
We want to turn to a key race now in Christian County for the Eastern Commissioner, Lynn Morris, who served 4 terms in the Missouri House and was term limited ran for this position, and right now with 80% of the votes, he is winning against his Democratic challenger, Nathan Belletto. 69% of precincts reporting this will replace Mike Robertson, who was appointed to that position and sworn in 2019 after Ralph Phillips was voted as presiding commissioner. And in Stone County, the health department is asking for a tax levy increase from 0.07 cents to 0.1 cent per $100 of property value. And right now that is passing with 100% of the precincts reporting this is a done deal. Yes, that will pass the tax levy, 51% of the votes.
And now weather with Chief Meteorologist Jamie Warner, certified by WeatherRate for the most accurate forecast in the Ozarks.
All right, election night is here. We're getting through the numbers and we're getting through the night nice and easy. Looks like a beautiful pattern ahead that we'll be able to enjoy. Right now, temperatures still in the 50s. Winds are going to stay up a little bit overnight tonight, so it's not going to get terribly cold. It looks like lows generally in the 40s tonight. This after a day where we had afternoon readings well into the 70s. In fact, take a look over here in Kansas. Emporia, 81 degrees this afternoon. Didn't make it to 80 in our area, but we got pretty close. 77 in a lot of spots. Here in Springfield, 75. Way above the average high of 63, and you can see how far we have come in the last week. A week ago today, we had a high of 38 degrees, and that cold rain was falling. Today, felt like springtime. Temperatures are going to be looking good the rest of the week and into this weekend as well. Very quiet weather pattern across the nation, coast to coast. Not a whole lot of weather to talk about. We've got some shower activity in Washington State, and we've got a little bit of snow here in New York State. Other than that, not a lot of precipitation, but down to the south, I showed you the storm yesterday. Take a look. It has now made its way inland. This is still Hurricane Ada, making its way west across Nicaragua before it begins to take more of a turn to the northwest. Winds are down to 105 miles per hour. Came ashore earlier today as a strong Category 4 hurricane with 140 mile per hour winds. That will go down as one of the strongest storms in the month of November on record. And that storm, like I said, will continue to head west. And it's not over with. That storm will continue to barrel west and then eventually hook back to the northeast into the western Caribbean, where it looks like there may be enough of a circulation left so that this storm will still be Ada. and then it will make its way northeast toward Cuba and Florida. And it looks like even beyond 5 days, I think we're going to have this tropical system meandering in this area because it will kind of lose those steering currents, and it'll have to wait for a stronger system to kick it out of that area. So we'll be following the tropics in that area for a little while. Right now, locally, again, seeing a little bit of high cloudiness moving through our northern counties. Had a beautiful photo that was sent in by one of our weather watchers up in Lincoln, Missouri, of that little bit of high cloudiness moving in at sunset. There's more on the way behind that. You can see it back across Kansas and Oklahoma, and that's really the only story, that and the warm temperatures. High cloudiness spreading in by morning. We'll find waves of it through the day. Looks like it'll thicken up as we get into the afternoon, giving us filtered sunshine. That'll go with mild temperatures and breezy southwest winds. Those high clouds on the way out by morning on Thursday, and Thursday looks like it will turn out to be another sunny and warm day. So let's get to those numbers. Again, tonight, generally in the 40s for lows. Looks like a beautiful day, again, with a little bit more in the way of cloudiness, obviously. We'll have that filtered sunshine in the afternoon, but look how temperatures climb very quickly to near 70 by lunchtime, with an afternoon high of 74 tomorrow. Tomorrow night, back in the 40s for lows, and it looks like we're back in the mid-70s for highs again on Thursday. And this pattern is a warm and dry one. We will start seeing some changes, though, by the end of the week as the trough moves into the western U.S., and it looks like eventually that trough will edge east by Tuesday, and we'll see a cold front sweeping through the area sometime in the Monday night through Tuesday time frame. Right now, it looks like instability levels are going to be very low as that cold front moves through, but I still expect showers and also expect temperatures to turn colder. So after a very extended period of highs in the 70s, here in the first week of November, which is unusual to have that much in the way of warmth, we are going to be getting back to chilly weather on Tuesday, I think.
Okay, so a beautiful week ahead, and couldn't have asked for better weather there for election day.
If you got to stand in a line outside, today is the kind of weather that you want to have to do it.
Sunny. Okay. Jamie, thank you. And now we want to get to our Jefferson City Capitol Bureau reporter. She is live for a special session called by Governor Parson is taking place in 2 days. Emily, why are lawmakers returning for another special session? And tell us more about the race tonight.
Say that it was a great day to stand in line when it comes to voting. Well, let me tell you, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft told me just a little bit ago, you might have seen my live report with him in the 9 o'clock hour. He said it was a great day to stand in line, and they had a lot of those lines across the state, but they had fairly small or very few problems across the state, just minor little polling places in the Springfield area, actually in Christian County, that had a couple of minor glitches early this morning, but they were back up and running by 7:30. He said it was quite smooth. Now on to that special session that you were just talking about, Heather. Lawmakers are set to return to the building, the beautiful building here right behind me, on Thursday this week. This time it's to discuss a supplemental budget bill, and that's because Governor Parson says that lawmakers need to discuss how to distribute the rest of the CARES Act funding that has come through COVID-19. You might remember that it wasn't too long ago that lawmakers were back here in the state capitol to be able to discuss an anti-crime package put out by Governor Parson. Well, he's calling them back. During that previous special session, lawmakers spent about more than $200,000 on everybody reconvening here in the capitol for more than 50 days. Well, this time they're expecting it to be a short special session, and I was able to get some estimates from some of the lawmakers inside the House and the Senate to talk about what this could cost. And it's looking like this special session could cost taxpayers around $140,000 to $150,000. And they're looking at this special session only lasting about 4 days. So if we start later this week, it could be over by the end of next week if everything goes as planned. Now, of course, it could have been a lame duck session if Governor Parson would have lost, which it would have been the first time in 50 years for that here in the state of Missouri. But since Governor Parson won, we are not worried about that. So, of course, I'll be following that special session here for the rest of the week and, of course, bringing you all the details when it comes to that. Back to you, Heather, in Springfield.
All right, Emily Manley live in Jefferson City. Thanks. I want to get back to the interactive map we've been sharing with you on ozarksfirst.com tonight. It takes a look at our entire country. This is according to the Associated Press. Certain states have been called for Vice President Biden. Certain states have been called for President Trump. You see some shades shaded, some states shaded, I should say, light red, light blue. Those are trending in the direction, but as Dr. Calfano said, a lot of votes are still being counted, so those could could still flip one way or another. A long way to go, but again, you can watch that map and watch it change in real time on OzarksFirst.com. Much more to come after this quick break.
Yes. Sure. Hey, how about a live interview? What do you think? Do we have time for a live interview?
New numbers now in for the race for Missouri's governor.
Mike Parson, of course, being declared the winner tonight with 84% of precincts reporting. Governor Parson has 58% of the vote to Nicole Galloway's 40%. This, of course, being the first time that Governor Mike Parson has been elected governor, because he was elevated to that position back in 2018 from lieutenant governor when Governor Greitens resigned back in 2018. So this is the first time the governor has been elected as governor here in the state of Missouri.
And Governor Parson spoke shortly after he was declared the winner. Our crew's at the Bass Pro White River Conference Room in a press conference right now.
We want to show you the scene moments ago. Governor Mike Parson celebrating the victory with his family and supporters. And here's a bit of his speech to his supporters tonight.
This election, and I've said it on the trail a lot, this election was about preserving freedom, capitalism, and the rule of law is what this election was all about. And however, there is more work to be done, and that work starts tomorrow. Now, for months, you've heard me say, it is our time. That's what I've said. This is our time. And I've said that time and time again across the state, on every stop I've made for the last year, because I believe it's me and you. I don't believe it's about me as governor. I believe it's about all of us to be together. I believe it is our time to preserve the American dream. And I believe it is our time to preserve freedoms for the next generation. And it is our time to be governor for 4 more years.
Mike Parson, the 57th governor of Missouri, again elected technically tonight for the first time because he got that job being elevated 2 years ago when Governor Greitens resigned.
And he is in Springfield at the White River Conference Center. Our Jesse Inman and David Chazanov also there. We want to check in with Jesse now. Jesse, what's the atmosphere like, and what have you heard?
Yeah, still a pretty upbeat atmosphere in here. Obviously, nothing compared to what it was like when Governor Parson took the stage. When the word came through, we saw people kind of high fives and hugs all around. And one of the first people that I saw that was an indicator for me was Kelly Jones here, the Chief Communications Director for Governor Mike Parson. Kelly, a big night for you guys. What is it like now that this is over and you can kind of take a moment?
We're excited. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, and tonight we're going to soak it in and enjoy the victory and go back to work tomorrow morning first thing. But fun night.
Yes, big night, and I know that after this it's back to work. The work really never stops for you guys. Up there in Jefferson City, after a campaign like this, how does Governor Parson go back to have a working relationship with Auditor Galloway after a campaign like this?
But if you know Governor Parson, he has a working relationship just with about everybody. He likes to work, across the aisle. He likes to make sure the communication is there, and he'll continue to work with Auditor Galloway without a question. So, and all the legislators as well.
And as you said, back to work. What are some of the first couple things that you guys are going to have on the agenda when you get back?
Well, we're back to work tomorrow, and obviously COVID's going to be, top on the list as always, and we'll continue to work to battle COVID and continue the balancing approach that the governor has had. And then we're going to, start looking at our priorities, because before we know it, session will be in, and I'm sure governor's going to go right back to his go-to, and that's workforce development and infrastructure. So
the work never stops in politics, as you heard there, and the results continue to roll in. It looks like it was just called President Trump taking Ohio, according to Fox News. For the rest of the results and the rest of tonight, we'll send it back to you guys in Springfield. Jesse Inman, Ozarks First.
Once again, thanks.
Francis Lynn is live for us at Mother's Brewing, where local candidates from the Democratic Party are holding a watch party there. Francis, what can you tell us tonight?
Good evening, David and Heather. So I'm back with Sam Smith, the Greene County Democrats Executive Director. So Sam, what did you think about Nicole Galloway's concession speech? She mentioned she was honored to have ran for governor and, quote, "As long as you're fighting for what you know is right, know that I'm fighting on your side." What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Nicole Galloway has done a fantastic job as state auditor for the last couple of years. Missouri's really lucky to have her. She's always been an independent voice. We're very disheartened to hear the results of the election for Nicole Galloway. She would have done a fantastic job as governor. But moving forward, we know that we have a lot of opportunities and that Nicole will continue to do a good job serving our state. So.
Thank you. And let's talk about Joe Biden first. Of course, Democrats are supporting presidential candidate Joe Biden. Why would he be a better candidate for Americans?
Well, it's pretty simple for Greene County here specifically. This is a working class community, and Joe Biden stands up for working class Americans. He's got labor interests at heart. He wants to raise the minimum wage. He wants to create a better community for the people who live here.
Thank you. And what about Amendment 3? You mentioned this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue.
Absolutely. It's a nonpartisan issue. We're still getting results in from across the state in terms of precinct reportings, but here in Greene County, things seem to be looking really good for putting down Amendment 3. Amendment 3 is reversing Clean Missouri, which voters have supported. We need to make sure that it fails.
Thank you so much for your time. And if there's any more updates here, I'll be posting them on ozarksfirst.com, or you can download our app, KOLR10 Ozarks First app. Francis Lynn, Ozarks First.
Can we just quickly clarify for our viewers what Amendment 3 was about before we go on to our next thing? Because we don't want you to be confused. Amendment 3 asked voters whether you want to keep in place or overturn what was passed by voters back in 2018.
And this dealt with redistricting. Yeah. So as of right now, it looks like voters are leaning toward, here we go, we have it up right now, changing that redistricting. And this appears that voters are saying, yes, we want to override what voters decided 2 years ago.
There was some confusion. Both sides kind of talked about the fact there was some confusion in the language of this, and there were some questions in the beginning of this amendment about lobbyist gifts, and so that's what you're seeing there. folks said, no, yeah, we want to limit lobbyist gifts, but down in the language of Amendment 3, it talked about that redistricting. And again, right now, voters are saying they want to overturn what they did put in place just 2 years ago. So we'll have to see how this shakes out tonight.
87% of the precincts reporting there. We want to get to our Madison Heber on our alert desk tonight, staying on top of breaking election news from across the country.
We've been watching some key Senate races, and we've seen at least one flip tonight, possibly two.
Yeah, David, I'm keeping up with those key Senate races across the country tonight, but I'll start off with the race for Senate in Arkansas. Republican incumbent Tom Cotton is the projected winner with 67% against Democratic challenger Ricky Dale Harrington Jr. We're also taking a look at Arizona's race for Senate between Republican incumbent Martha McSally and Democrat Mark Kelly. Right now, Kelly is leading that race, and if he wins, that will be a flip in that Senate seat. And in Montana, Democrat and Governor Steve Bullock is leading as well over Republican incumbent Steve Daines. Again, if Bullock wins that, that will be another race where the seat is flipped in the Senate. The country is also looking at South Carolina tonight between Republican incumbent Lindsey Graham and Democrat Jamie Harrison. That race has been called with Graham as the projected winner with 56%. Y'all want to keep an eye on these races as they could potentially flip the Senate. One Republican Senate seat has already flipped tonight. That was in Colorado with former Democratic presidential candidate John Hickenlooper.
Okay, Madison, thanks so much. We're also following more results from the election tonight. Results still coming in nationally, but we want to show you how the presidential race shaped up here so far in Missouri. Again, this is just Missouri. 89% of precincts reporting President Donald Trump declared the winner in Missouri with 56% of the vote, followed by Joe Biden there at 42%.
In Missouri's race for Secretary of State, the office is currently held by Jay Ashcroft, a Republican, and with 89% of the precincts reporting 60% of the votes going to Jay Ashcroft. He is declared the winner, the incumbent, tonight.
Also, we're going to tell you real quick about the Attorney General's race here in Missouri. The current Attorney General, who had been our treasurer, he was appointed Attorney General in 2019. He's now won election as Attorney General. 59% of the votes in favor of Eric Schmidt, the current Missouri Attorney General, over Rich Finneran, who's a former St. Louis prosecutor. 89% of precincts reporting there in that race. And we'll have more results right after this quick break.
I think we need to get to those at some point for sure.
Let's do, what did you say we hadn't done yet? We hadn't, Lieutenant?
Okay.
Let's do Lieutenant Governor, Treasurer, then let's do Amendment 1. Heather, you okay with this?
Yeah.
And then Amendment 3 again? Just to reiterate
fine with
that.
me. If you want, I mean, I originally had the full screen reads for the Lieutenant Governor and Treasurer, so if I can take these two, you take the amendments.
Okay. You do those, I'll do the amendments, and then we'll see where we are on time. Just give us a time cue. We'll and if we're down to like a minute left, we'll figure out what to say to fill the time. I don't think we should. We're local. If people want that, they can watch CNN or Fox or whatever else. Let's do local. Okay.
Do you want me at the H2 for this? Okay. Okay. I like it. Okay. Should we mention, I know there's none reporting, but like Crystal Quaid and all.
Yeah, we should just say we're still waiting. Well, I mean, we can mention we're still waiting on some state. She's like 135, I think, or 132.
133.
But I don't. But we
that
can't.
is 132. It was B09.
Yeah, 27%. That's still pretty early.
That's Curtis Trent.
Have those been scrolling at the bottom? Because if we don't have
big numbers,
yeah,
then
let's just let them. Let's not. Let's just
Okay.
not. No.
Yeah, it's okay.
If we get desperate, you will call for them, but. Treasurer, Amendment 1, Amendment 3, and then have ready 4, 7, and 8 for the U.S.
Oh, 1 minute. Never mind.
What's our off time? Okay. All right. I feel like a little drink.
New numbers into our newsroom as we continue to take a look at some of the state races across Missouri. We want to look at the lieutenant governor's race now. Republican and current office holder Mike Kehoe is winning this right now. This is with 91% of the precincts reporting, 58% going to Mike Kehoe. He is currently holding this office. He was appointed, you'll remember, to lieutenant governor in 2018 after former Governor Eric Greitens resigned and Mike Parson assumed the role of governor, appointing Mike Kehoe. Alicia Kennedy, the attorney and former Kansas City Council member with the Democratic side, falling behind with 39%. Again, this is a done deal for Mike Kehoe with 91% of the precincts reporting, 58% going to the Republican. Also want to take a look now, Scott Fitzpatrick. He's running for another term as Missouri's treasurer. And again, he is the Republican taking the lead on this, 59% of the votes with 91% of precincts reporting. Fitzpatrick has served as state treasurer since January 2019. Now, he was appointed to that role by Governor Mike Parson after Eric Schmidt was appointed to attorney general when Josh Hawley was elected as senator. So Fitzpatrick winning this seat for the first time.
Kind of a domino effect in a lot of ways after the resignation of the governor. Amendment 1 was the term limit question. Should we extend that to some other statewide offices? Folks are saying no, we should not put those term limits on the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, auditor, and attorney general. 89% of precincts reporting on Amendment 1 right now. Right now, 53% of voters saying no, 47% saying yes. Amendment 3, this was that confusing one here. 89% of precincts reporting right now, and as it stands right now, voters are saying yes to Amendment 3 by 52% to 48%. Now, here's where it gets confusing. By saying yes on Amendment 3, what you're saying is, yes, we want to overturn what voters approved and put in place back in 2018 under the Clean Missouri effort, if you will. And so this will basically put it back in the governor's hands to appoint a commission to draw the legislative lines for redistricting here in the state of Missouri. Still a little ways to go on the count there, 4% difference, likely not going to change at this point tonight. But again, the other headline tonight, Mike Parson elected for the first time as governor in Missouri after he was elevated to that position when Governor Eric Greitens resigned back in 2018.
That's right, and a lot of the Republicans maintaining that seat in Missouri state races. Donald Trump winning the state of Missouri tonight as well. And we are still following all of the latest numbers from right here in Missouri, across the state and across the country. Those numbers scrolling at the bottom of your screen and on ozarksfirst.com.
Yeah. Our team's not going home yet. We're going to go back in the newsroom, kind of reassess things, see where things are. Stay with KOLR 10, watch the bottom of your screen, and watch ozarksfirst.com and Daybreak tomorrow at 5 a.m.
Good night.